First, to give you a quick overview of the parallel session 1 yesterday, an agenda for new skills and jobs, implementing Article 27 of the UN CRPD. Background, obviously, that the EU has set a very ambitious employment target of 75% of the working age population should be in work by 2020. We had very interesting presentations. The first one from Ana Clara Pereira, who mentioned that the inherent unemployment problem in the EU predates the crisis that we've all been so preoccupied with this time, and that there's a new EU flagship policy on employment which addresses supply, demand and the quality of jobs. She mentioned also that the population is shrinking, and this indeed even takes account of migrants. Economic growth will therefore depend upon productivity increasing. And she also mentioned that in contractual arrangements for jobs, there are two distinct classes of people, insiders and outsiders. Insiders being newer entrants to the job market, younger people, and also disabled people. There's an extremely strong need to access lifelong learning in order to keep people flexible, and that this should be targeted at the so-called vulnerable groups, including disabled people. Long-term unemployment is increasing everywhere, is what she said, and a new buzzword for your lexicons, flexicurity. In terms of the second presentation, we had a very compelling case given by Donata Vivanti, the Vice President of Autism Europe, and she made a very good case for the employment of people with autistic spectrum disorder who at the moment experience a 90% unemployment rate. Why are those 90% unemployed? Well, it's because of a lifetime, she says, of denied opportunities. That's the problem. A lot of prejudice, a lot of neglect, and a lot of exclusion. Some people with autistic spectrum disorders have unique talents, especially, for example, in information technology. Reasonable accommodations are what is needed, and the idea that these are costly is simply a myth. She also mentioned that the crisis that we currently experience is now an opportunity to reform support, and that also that the UN CRPD, Article 27, is key in enforcing this. Now, in terms of interventions, we were asked, the panel was asked, what sort of support structures to enable people to get jobs. Another intervention came from somebody who said, I want to work, but I don't know how. And is the crisis really an opportunity? Some initiatives have already been mentioned. Also, how to bridge the gap between what the market demands and the current pool of job seekers. People ask, isn't the EU agenda for jobs too mainstream? In other words, it doesn't take account of people with disabilities. And where is the business case, we were asked, for disability employment? Well, we were also asked whether more funds were needed for inclusion. How could this happen at the same time as cuts? And we were told there was no magic answer, but that we need to use the money that we invest in these areas in a more joined-up fashion, more coordination and more cohesion, in order to, as Ms. Pereira said, to square the equation. How could the Commission support the education of deaf children was another question. We need to take account of an integrated approach, and we had a very, very interesting example from the Irish Republic about a practical scheme for encouraging disabled people, particularly people with intellectual impairments, to take part in the workforce. So that's the first session that I'm summarising. The second session I would like to summarise is session 3 from today, which is Connecting Europe, Accessible Transport and ICT. And we were told about the new transport policy, which is being proposed to create this so-called strategic network. The network is going to be based on nodes, and those nodes will be connected to form what's called a core network, and the rest of the transport infrastructure in the EU is going to be known as the comprehensive network. And the ambition is that it will only take any EU citizen 1 hour to get from their comprehensive network onto the so-called core network. Big costs involved, 250 billion euros by 2020, 500 billion euros by 2030. Anne-Sophie Parent from Age Europe said that mobility should be seen as an investment and not a cost. That improving mobility means prolonging employment. And that demographic change means that there will be a so-called tsunami of baby boomers hitting us soon. And she expressed the hope that the Danish presidency will take a much more forward-looking approach to the provision of accessibility in the new transport policy. In terms of interventions, people asked how much would be set aside for accessibility, and we were told that's not really how it works. We were told that in fact accessibility would be one of the criteria used for assessing funding bids. But how important would accessibility be in this process? And we were told, well, it's a matter of consultation, and the Commission representative was persuaded, I think, that making disabled people part of that consultation process was absolutely vital. In fact, the chair of the session, Mr. Rodolfo Catani, said, disabled people in this process want to be actors, not stakeholders. I think that's pretty much wraps up my session as well, so I'll hand over to the second rapporteur. Thank you very much.